Homelessness, veterans, alcoholism, drug abuse, sex offenders, bestiality, rape, necrophilia. Each topic just primed for someone to take offense to it. So then why in the sketch Homelesser could we touch on all these topics and still have it work so well? I'll attempt to break that down for you now. In the Live from La Crosse sketch, Homelesser, two homeless people are begging an unsuspecting pedestrian for his final dollar. Instead of having the argument in spoken dialogue, we see them exchange words via their cardboard signs while a jaunty jazz number plays in the background. They attempt to win the prize by both guilting the pedestrian that their situation is worse than the others and by being the whistleblower to the other one's claims. Eventually, the pedestrian decides his generous attempts are futile and his dollar would be better spent on a scratch-off lotto ticket. The sketch was first put up in November 2017 and has been performed in front of 5 different audiences to roughly 500 people, including at the Chicago Sketch Comedy Festival. And every time it's hit the stage, even when it was first read at the pitch meeting, it's not only done well, it's destroyed. But why? Why does a sketch with so much of what American culture has deemed untouchable topics continuously do well and get big laughs with no complaints? Well, let's start at the beginning. Reason number 1, we've primed your brain that way from the start. So the first thing that happens is the lights come up to reveal 2 homeless men, and immediately in your brain a fight or flight response kicks in. This happens in your amygdala, which is responsible for emotional responses. It's playfully called the lizard brain. It also maps out memories. Stronger the emotional input, stronger the memory. So, we see the homeless people and we immediately perceive potential danger. Not that all homeless people are inherently dangerous, but we generally proceed with caution because of what we know, or better yet, what we don't know about them. A brilliant decision here was made to have the actors choose costumes based on realism and not parody or mockery, which seems counterintuitive in comedy, but is essential in making sure that the audience knows we're not mocking them for their dire situation. Then your cerebrum takes over, which is in charge of your rational thought and your social thinking. So in this moment, you have 2 different decision-making processes happening, and we are exploiting that cognitive difference. Your amygdala makes a quick decision, and your cerebrum makes a slower, more calculated decision about the homeless men. Your amygdala squirts a little bit of cortisol, also known as the stress hormone, and some adrenaline into your system, getting your body prepared to either run or fight the homeless men. Soon thereafter, your cerebrum dispels the danger and comes up with solutions. These are actors in costumes. I'm at a comedy show. They attacked a theater full of people, we could probably overpower them, and so on and so forth. So you get a balance of endorphins and immediately you start to feel better. Also, the jaunty up-tempo jazz number playing in the background cues the audience right away that this is supposed to be lighthearted and fun. So in essence, it informs you of how to feel. If the music was slower in a minor key, or is not there at all, this will leave the audience feeling pity, which is not the feeling you want to evoke, as you will soon see. So your brain pulls it all together, and we have primed it for laughter by tapping into your cognitive dissonance and creating tension, and all in the manner of a few short seconds. Reason number 2, we've given you a relatable character. Then the pedestrian enters, and this person is essentially you, the audience member. You see and feel what he sees and feels, and the audience likes that they are portrayed as this kind person who wants to help these guys in need by giving them not just some money, but all the money that he has left. And though the pedestrian's lack of fear again tells you that they are not a threat, there's an enhanced tension about who will get the money. If there is no pedestrian, it feels like we're parading these homeless men out for our own entertainment, like you're watching a circus. If the pedestrian is there to harass them, we go back to feeling pity, which is not funny. Reason number 3, we clearly establish the gag. Next, we have a couple back and forths with the signs prompting the crowd of the direction of the sketch. There's a quick setup and a punchline of trying to deceive the pedestrian that he is a war veteran, when in fact he is lying and really only played a war simulation video game one time. So there are many elements here. We've established that these men are A, somehow having a spontaneous conversation through pre-made signs, which is a misdirection. The signs act as the communication, and not hearing the men speak make them seem less like real people and more like cartoon characters. It appeals in the same way that we are not sad every time the coyote falls off the cliff. B, they are engaging in a bidding war to get the money, which establishes that the tension is between the men and not you, the audience, or the pedestrian. Not only that, it's only for $1, so the stakes for winning or losing are not high at all. C, they are going to be deceitful to get the money, which again establishes that the pedestrian as the relatable character or the good guy. And D, it quickly shifts your perception of him from the heroic war vet to a video gamer, which are essentially polar opposite perceptions, which implies that their lives probably aren't as bad as we're led to believe. It also foreshadows that we want the good guy to win, and at this point your brain has decided that it's not laughing at a homeless veteran, rather somebody lying and taking advantage of your kindness. So when the first gag hits of, "I once played Call of Duty," we have our first big laugh. It's not even a great joke, it's actually quite safe, but it didn't have to be a great joke. It was the release of tension laugh. From the cognitive dissonance we talked about earlier, we've pocketed much better jokes for later on. Reason number 4, we tap into what we've all speculated. In the next string of gags, one of the homeless men sets up the other as somebody who will waste the money on alcohol before confirming that it will instead be used to fuel a drug habit. Alcoholism and drug use alone is not funny, and the homelessness factor makes it even less so. But why does it work? Well, because he's telling us exactly what we've all speculated all along. If you give a stranger money, it's quite likely that they will not use it for what you intended. Not only is this a relatable moment, it's a relatable feeling that we've all had but don't like to discuss because we want to feel like what we're doing is the right thing and not feeding these destructive habits. We use the homeless man's honesty about the deceit and the secret relatability of the pedestrian as a misdirection to make you think, "Oh, I should have seen that coming," which makes you feel like you're actually there. Even the pedestrian shows us what we should be feeling: playful frustration. Another reason is the perfect timing of the actors turning the signs based off of the laughter. It has been 15 seconds before the last big laugh, which allows the audience time to build and hold more tension again for another big release, but not too long so that they have lost that feeling. Laughter is a release of tension, like a pressure valve, but tension needs time to build. Reason number 5, we hammer a string of jokes. Now that we've established all this information about the characters, the audience is ready to be hit with a barrage of jokes and release almost all the tension that we've built to this point. In the next section, we dive into the most intense parts that could be seen as offensive. It starts with them being sex offenders, then bestiality, then necrophilia, and finally sexual assault, possibly even rape. Doesn't get less funny than that. But yet, this part brings the house down. It's a little complicated, and I'm doing a bit of a speculation work here. For starters, we use a pigeon as the animal, a nearly universally despised creature. Had the animal been a dog or a cat, the audience would have likely pictured their own pet and not laughed. But because pigeons are such a nuisance, they're on board with it. Had it been something people are indifferent about, say a watermelon, the audience would have been indifferent about the act as well. But then we also make a pigeon dead, which, though it seems like it's a worse act, we've secretly softened the joke while making it seem more offensive. The reason is, the audience is secretly relieved that the pigeon was not alive to experience getting fucked by the homeless man. Not only that, he says it was dead on the sign, which implies that he didn't kill the pigeon himself, rather he just found it that way. It also helps that we don't show them in the act. Combine that with the misdirection of his blatant honesty and the fact that he's established rules as to what constitutes for fucking things, and the audience doesn't care anymore about the fictional pigeon. The audience is now taking pleasure in them not winning and want to make sure that these guys don't get the money. Finally, it ends with one man talking about when he sexually assaulted the other with a callback to the pigeon. First of all, this joke only works here after we have set everything else up. If it comes earlier in the sketch, before it's established that these guys are trying to hustle the pedestrian, the audience checks out. If they joke about sexually assaulting the pedestrian or anybody else, the audience checks out. We also do not see them actually doing the act. And because we've already established that these are sketchy guys, the audience knows that it's quite likely these guys are possibly deceiving the pedestrian yet again. We've also established that these guys are in on this together, probably good friends with a warped relationship who will only act on one another, not on you. And because we don't like either of them, it feels okay. The laughter comes from the relatable feeling of being stuck between two strangers who are having an argument, but we're not emotionally attached to either of them, so who cares what they're arguing about? Reason number 6. The relatable character wins. Eventually, the pedestrian forgoes giving either of them the money and decides it would be better spent on a lotto ticket, which is a subtle win for the pedestrian since he would rather throw the dollar away than give it to them now. Though this seems inconsequential, it is a critical moment that helps the audience understand that they won, and by not being duped into giving these idiots the money and the homeless guys were the cause of their own undoing, the pedestrian never says one thing until the very end. The homeless guys have driven the dialogue, and it's quick and it's satisfying. Reason number 7. We give them a callback to a strong joke as the button. As the pedestrian leaves, the homeless men have a short back and forth complaining about the guy not giving them free money, which reinforces the audience has summed these guys up correctly. But to truly close out the sketch, we need to see what these guys are like when no one's around to perform while not using too much time to do this. This way the audience knows whether or not these guys are who they claim to be. The easy way out would be make them somebody else, performing like these guys. Surprise, we were undercover cops the entire time trying to fool you. But this would have betrayed the audience. We decided to make them true to what we had committed them to be. But instead of opening up a new string of jokes for them to explore, we reference back to the pinnacle of the sketch, the string of offensive topics. But instead of reminding the audience of the sexual assault, we bring their minds back to the softer pigeon story before we drop the lights. And finally, reason number 8. It was quick and it ended at its peak. Audiences like to feel edgy, but not for too long. Eventually, edgy starts to feel dirty, and dirty feels uncomfortable. Though most sketches run 5 to 7 minutes, the fact that the sketch had a runtime of less than 2 minutes plays it perfectly. It also did not dwell on any one topic for too long. It just touched on the joke and then moved your mind away from it before it analyzed it too much. So, is this sketch offensive? Is it a release of existing prejudice towards homeless people? Possibly, but I believe that there's no such thing as taboo topics, just taboo treatment of those topics, and at no point while writing, rehearsing, or seeing it performed live did I ever feel like we crossed that line. Do you agree or not? Write your comments below and tell me what you think.